Commissioner Aldridge is going to lead us in the invocation, and Commissioner Perno is going to lead us in the pledge.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this day that you've blessed us all with, Lord, and we thank you, Father God, for our home here in Lynn Haven, Florida. I thank you, Father, for our leaders here in this town, and I thank you for our citizens here, Lord God, in this town that care about their home enough to come out and speak up for the things that are important to them. I pray, Father, that you would guide this meeting by your hand and your spirit. Allow us to use our wisdom that you've given us, Father God, and help us to operate out of love for each other as neighbors. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you all for coming out this morning. It's been a fairly busy couple of weeks. I don't know if, a lot of y'all don't see were able to make it to the Kane Griffin grand opening that we had Saturday. That was a really amazing day. The park turned out beautiful, and I know me and the city manager and the other commissioners thanked everybody, but I want to make a point to thank this commission for having the forethought to vote and pass that and get that park going. Thank Marshall Brothers for getting it built, and thank the city staff for following through with it and making sure it turned out beautiful. That's just a beautiful park, and I'm excited to see the kids back out there playing. Other than that, design meetings and fielding questions from citizens have pretty much filled up my 2 weeks, but it's been eventful and good, and we're moving forward, and I'm excited to see where the city's going. So moving on from there, let's go with Commissioner Tender. Would you like to give your report, ma'am?
Sure. Basically, I've been dealing with in the last couple of weeks code enforcement issues, of which we're going to talk about tonight and try to do something about that. It's way out of hand. Been dealing with residents and their water bills and just all the regular issues. It's on the agenda tonight or this morning, so I think I'll wait and talk about our LLC when it comes up. And that's basically it. Feel very busy. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Aldridge, I did it again to you. I think I'm going to keep doing that just to aggravate you.
Someone get this man a name tag with my name on it and let him look at it, please. No, that's okay, Mayor. Appreciate it. For my report, actually, we all deal with the same issues, I think. Every one of the commissioners up here gets the calls about the flooding and the drainage issues and the sewage issues and all of these things that we all deal with. But, we have received some response this past couple of weeks, some emails, and the city manager's gotten some emails. Some positive comments, some remarks that the city seems to be getting its bearings, and that we have, some stormwater and sewage issues that are being resolved with some of our new employees that specialize in that area. And I'm just excited. I'm excited that the public and the citizens are able to see that we're fighting. We're fighting as hard as we can to get this town back and get you guys' town back better than it was ever before. So it means a lot to us, and we still have a ways to go. We still have to work on stuff. I understand that, but I'm thankful that we're moving forward. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, and I apologize. I think I'm going to start calling you Commissioner Brandon. That way we don't have that issue anymore. So, Commissioner Perno?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had meetings with a couple citizens over the last couple weeks. I was definitely taken back by the dedication of rededication of King Griffin and the splash pads and the people who were there. Miss Sheffield and her daughter and it was and the people that came out. It was heartwarming. And it's impressive to stand in the middle of the King Griffin Park and you don't realize how big that pad of concrete is there. I mean, you could do a small concert there or something. It's definitely the sky's the limit on what can go on over there. So I think it's a great thing for the neighborhood. So I talked to a gentleman on Indiana over the weekend, and he expressed interest in not making his road a drag strip because he feels like there's no stop signs on that particular side of part of the road, and I talked to Ricky, and he's gonna take care of it. And I did say I did get several emails yesterday and phone conversations about one of our agenda items about meeting time. So I'm looking forward to that. And well, with that, that's my report, and I'd like to thank all the employees of the city and all of our first responders as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Moving on to agenda number 5, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The first thing on the agenda is Employee of the Month, which is Brent DeFalco. Brent came to us actually as a temporary worker, worked really, really hard, and we wind up hiring him. And he was actually nominated by his peers that work with him. They saw the work that he had been doing. He's really picked up some trade skills. He is a quick learner, and just a absolutely delight to work with. I see him all the time. He's very, very personable, very mannerable, and enjoys working for the city. So this month's Employee of the Month is Brent Falco. And one of the reasons why the employees are not here to receive their awards, because we try to make sure we can get as many people as we possibly can into the building. But one of the things we will do when we move over, and hopefully, so Pat's, that we move over to the Lynn Haven Senior Activity Club, is that we can bring all of those employees of the months that we have recognized, take a good photo of them and let you see their faces. So just congratulations to Brent. And then we have now the financial update with our Deputy Finance Director, Kiki Roman.
Good morning. The check register of over $25,000 only had 2 items on it. Do you have any questions about either of those items? One other thing I'd like to bring to your attention is legal counsel has recommended to us that as the commission be removed off of the payroll and beginning of the calendar year, we will issue you 1099s and pay you through the AP system. So I'll have a document for you to sign with that. Do you have questions about that?
I do. It was such a
Yes,
big
ma'am.
deal to switch us over to the other way, so why now are we switching back?
This is advice of legal counsel.
Okay, so we ask you this question.
Right.
Why are we being switched back?
Well, it should have never been switched to begin with. It's really what the answer was. And that's more of a, under the charter, it was set up that way. And I remember I talked to Rob Jackson about it. We looked at it previously, and it needs to be a 1099, which I think is going to be being better for all the commissioners anyway. But that was under the charter, and it shouldn't have been switched.
So it's a charter issue.
Correct.
So do we need a motion to change it back? I don't know if we originally motioned to move this way, or is it just a
No, it's
procedural thing?
this is just informative. I mean,
Okay.
just to let you know, starting in January, it'll be 1099 instead of W-2.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Couple other things. Met with several residents these past couple of weeks, and as we've all said, dealing with code enforcement issues, stormwater issues, flooding issues. But one of the great things, I met with a couple of residents. There were actually a group of them that came, and we met off of Indiana Avenue. They were the most delightful residents with their problems that they had. They understood that one of them said they've been living here 40 years and some of the issues had not been addressed. They understood the kind of the plight of the city, and our assistant director of public works and I met with them and had really a way of showing them what we're going to be doing in the future. And they were very, very happy with that the city was even thinking about trying to alleviate the flooding within that area. And so they were ones that they said, you make sure you let everyone know that we understand, we support the city, and as long as you're thinking about us and you have a plan in place to alleviate the flooding on that area, and we do. Mr. Lightfoot had already begun working on it, so they were very pleased. And I've had several meetings with residents of that nature. And then lastly, we've been working with legal counsel on the final delta for the insurance. Hopefully, we really are working very hard to try to resolve this. So we will give you an update as soon as we have a meeting scheduled for this week. And that's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to item 6, City Attorney's Report, Mr. Obos.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and see everybody, and look forward to moving through this process with the city. We did have a great meeting last week that Vicki set up with all the staff that we were able to attend and get to meet everybody and try to get a handle on all the issues that will try to knock them off the list and get going. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir. And moving on to item 7, public commentary, and Ms. Walker, you get to go first, ma'am.
Question 1, Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Question 1, I'm seeing orange cones along 77 in various places in the medium. What is that meaning to me?
That is the beautification grant.
That's the 77?
Yes, ma'am.
Beautification grant.
Yes, ma'am.
Part of that grant, part of that beautification, are we tearing up those bushes, that kind of squiggly line down the medium?
Some of those we are, and some of them we're not. We're replacing those areas that look good, and then some of those areas we are pulling up and putting in new
So
stuff.
we're trying to save as much as we can,
Yes,
that we're
ma'am.
saving money.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Question number 2 is, thank you to Julie for doing such a great job on my reporting on the minutes for the last meeting regarding the taxes. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to speak.
You're fine, ma'am. You're
But
fine.
what I failed to see in here, and I leave early on Tuesdays because I always have a 10 o'clock exercise class. So what I don't see in here is the information, the detailed information on Mr. Finch, his presentation regarding his 3 checks, all for the same invoice, all for $60,000. I had to leave early, and I see very little in here. It doesn't even mention those checks. Phoenix Construction stated something, and then we no longer allow vendors to pick up checks. It almost seemed like it was Mr. Finch's problem because he picked up a check. But I don't see the detailed information that I would like to see.
My understanding, ma'am, there was only 2 checks issued.
Yes.
The first check that was issued was put at the service center because his company requested that it be picked up.
Yes?
They did not pick it up. They called and asked where the check was. The city voided the first check and issued a second check. Unfortunately, the voided check was left at the service center too, and that's how he was able to pick up both checks. But the first check had already been voided before he picked it up. That was what is explained to me, and if I'm incorrect,
is
I'd
correct.
like the city manager.
So only one $60,000 amount was deducted from the city.
That is correct.
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay, so if I were to ask to see a voided check or something, I could see a voided check?
And you'll see she even explained last week that one was signed by former Mayor Anderson,
Right.
and then one was signed by Mayor Pro Tem.
Right. And the reason for that? Are
Because the first one had been,
Two good checks, one was signed by Margot and one was signed by you.
Margot's was voided, and then mine was the one that was cashed.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Any other public commentary? Yes, ma'am.
Jody Moore, 2129 Amherst Street, and that is in College Point. I have an item later, and I've talked to a couple of people, and I'll bring that up later, something I'm not happy about. But I actually do want to start on a positive note. I've listened to what everybody has to say this morning, and moving forward with plans for the city, and I'm happy to see that. And I just want to say, as someone who is a resident of a Lynn Haven area, I do want to see a commission and citizens and workers of Lynn Haven who are working for the people. And I do think that going back 2 years to Hurricane Michael, everybody here really did step up to the plate. And I don't want to ever forget that, because you guys really did. You were heroes during that time. And I don't want that to be lost in time. I think all of you, you really did, amazing things. And I don't think there's a group of people that would have, that really understand, what it took to really get us through that time. So like I said, you know, we're going to disagree about some things. There's going to be some things I'm not happy about. There's going to be lots of things going forward that, you know, I'm going to agree on and think that's great. And I'm not alone in that. And some people are going to catch some heat for things, and then we're going to, like, you know, applaud you on some things too. But like I said, I want you to know that me personally, and I know I'm not alone in that, we're not going to forget everybody, every one of you up here, except the attorney. He was here at the time, but he wasn't here with the city at the time. Every one of you stepped up, and that was such a horrible time for everybody. Like I said, if you weren't here, you don't understand. So, I mean, I want to thank everybody who worked for the city at the time. Everybody really did a whole lot, and that includes, you know, our former mayor, Margaret Anderson, and I want to thank her for the steps that she took. And, you know, of course, you know, we all know what has happened in that situation too. But again, I just want to thank everybody for what they did at that time. And like I said, I'll have some more to say later, but I just wanted to say that to start off on a little bit of a positive note. Okay, so I'll be back up a little later.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other commentary? Yep, yes, sir. Come on up, sir.
Joe Brown, 2570 East 39th Street. I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate Miss Vicki for receiving an award from the Northwest Florida League of Cities last week for her outstanding service to the city and citizens. So.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, if there's no other public commentary, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes 3 items. The first one, the minutes of the October 27th, 20 regular meeting minutes. Item 9, approval to move city commission meeting to the Lynn Haven Senior Activity Club facility beginning December the 8th at 9 a.m. And item number 10, which I'm going to ask for a motion in a second to remove that from the consent agenda because I have some questions about. That's the approval to award all 3 qualified bidders with a contract for the push button maintenance, repair, and minor construction project.
Definitely move to remove that and talk about it. Yep.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Hearing none, city manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Okay, so that's removed out of the consent agenda. Okay, so now the consent agenda is item 8 and item 9, minutes of the October 27th, 20 regular meeting minutes. Item 9, approval to move city commission meeting to the Lynn Haven Senior Activity Club facility beginning December the 8th at 9 a.m.
Or can we discuss it yet? Do you need a motion?
We need a motion in a second. Yes, ma'am.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and yes, ma'am.
Okay, on number 9, the way this reads is beginning December 8th at 9 a.m. That's not anything about longevity or has to do with item number 22, right?
Well,
A meeting at 9 o'clock forever.
well, right now, our first meeting of the month, every month, is the morning meeting.
Right.
You know, so
Okay.
that's, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I also wanted to ask, just to put it out there, since the seniors, and I'm going to keep calling it senior center, I know, but the activity club or whatever, since that's a 501 and we're lending them the building, what's going to happen on the days we have meetings over there? They're just not going to be able to use that building that day or what?
That building's split. There's a very ample size, 2 ample size meeting areas. So I think if we're smart about it, they can go in both places. Not that I know, but.
That is correct. And
Okay.
I met with the seniors. One of the things they're going to do right now is they will have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday will be where they will open up and be in the senior center themselves. They wanted to start off small just due to COVID. They were very concerned about making sure people were safe. And so they will be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 until 3, I think, for now. And so it will not impede with us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I would make a comment that if you haven't walked the building yet, you ought to go look at it. It's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely amazing.
It's impressive
what
over
facilities
there.
have done with that building.
Yeah.
So, is there any other discussion? Any discussion with the public? Yes, ma'am. I tell you what, after this meeting, if y'all want to walk through it, I'll walk through with you.
I've been
Well,
told.
it is an active construction site, so they have to worry about liability, but I'll walk you through it after the meeting if you want me to, ma'am. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? None. City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldrich,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Okay. The consent agenda passes, and since we moved item 10 out of it, that is our next agenda item. Approval to award all 3 qualified bidders with a contract for the push button maintenance, repair, and minor construction projects. So before we can have discussion, we have to have a motion and a second, unfortunately.
I'll move to discuss. Is that correct, or?
Okay, we have a motion for discussion. Now, for qualification, or for clarification, my understanding is a motion is a motion. So
Motion's a
even if you
motion,
say
then.
it's for discussion, it still can be passed.
Sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're aware of that. So we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, so now then we can begin the discussion. Thank you for that.
I only have,
I've got a couple of questions, and I don't know who, I'm sorry,
well, that's okay. You go ahead first.
I'm sorry. I've got a couple of questions, and not exactly sure who I need to address.
Chris is
these
going to
to.
come up and talk about the
All right,
push button.
Perfect. Chris, you want to talk about it before we ask the questions then, sir?
So we put this project out to bid so we could get some qualified contractors for emergency work. The point of this is for an emergency the city has, for a contractor to respond within 4 hours. So as you see, we have a whole list here of different items, and the red items are the high number for this. The green items are the low number. And basically with this, if we have an emergency, we can pick one of these 3 contractors, and they can be on site within 4 hours.
So arbitrarily, just one of the 3, not one's better at one other thing than the other, or?
Well, in this, I mean, C.W. Roberts is pretty common for, paving. Marshall Brothers is, mechanical contractor, ball
Yeah.
field, stuff like that.
Okay.
Same with GCUC, so they're all qualified for all work.
Yes.
Um,
But that was my question, is if their areas of expertise might be a little.
Correct.
You know.
And, going by these prices, if we had, road work, CW was the lowest bid. So
Right.
we would more than likely call CW.
Gotcha.
If they're not able to respond within 4 hours, we would go to the next one.
Perfect.
I have a question. What sheet are you speaking from, and did,
It's in your agenda.
It's in the packet. It's all the little color-coded stuff. Yep.
and when would we, when you say emergency, I mean, we have like 180 some employees. When does this kick in, that these people start doing the work?
So it would just depend on what the situation was. If, for example, we had a 42-inch stormwater line that collapsed in the street, that we, did not have the equipment to handle or did not have the personnel that day on site, we could get that replaced or get that repaired.
And how much is in the budget for that?
There is no set money in the budget for emergency repairs. It would just have to be, approved upon, and go from there.
It comes out of each department, depending on
Yes.
what department
Correct.
spends the money.
Correct.
And Greg does have emergency. Usually the emergency repairs are in utilities, and a lot of the big emergencies happen on the weekend, which would require a firm or business to come in, a contractor, to come in and fix it. And so this puts us in line that we already have some contractors that are in place that we can call from.
Okay. And did we get the bidding things here too? They're in the packet as well?
Yeah.
Yes, and this,
Okay.
this packet that's in there is the detailed bid sheet with all 3 contractors that bid, with each price. To the far right, you have the average price, you have the max price, and the minimum price for the bid.
Thank you.
Okay, the couple of questions I've got, I didn't see in the packet what the term of the contract is for. So how long will, and the secondary question would be, are these prices guaranteed?
These prices are guaranteed. If we call the contractor, for asphalt 2 inches of super pave 9.5, it's guaranteed $15.12 per square yard from CW, $17.50 from Marshall Brothers, and $32.50 from GCUC. So those are guaranteed. I would imagine after 12 months, we would either have to rebid this or
So it's a year.
redo the contract to lock the prices in for another 12 months.
Do you have them sign anything when, now that we've agreed to it? I mean, it's a bid, and we're saying that we're gonna use them. Do we hold them to a contract?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
There were 3 contractors, or there were 8 contractors that picked it up, and I was happy to see because obviously I went through and checked where they are. You know, one of them was from Milton, one of them was from Jacksonville. So apparently we're getting the word out, you know, outside of the Bay County area, which I was glad to see that they picked them up. I was really sad that they didn't put in pricing, you know, which the I'm sorry, go ahead.
In regards to that, it's very hard for an out of town contractor to respond for an emergency within 4
Right.
hours. So
Sure.
it's something like this. It's really hard to get more than out of town bidders or more out of town bidders.
I understand, okay. I didn't get to see the solicitation packet, so I was curious to know, was there any qualifying criteria required for the contractors? Or you just said, give us pricing?
We had pricing and then all the contractors that submitted their DOT qualifications and stuff like that. So
They did?
and they
Okay.
have all done work for the city before. So
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of all three companies.
but they have all
you
submitted
know, I mean,
DOT
and
qualifications, their contractor license and everything as part of their bid package.
How will you decide who to use?
Well, of course, we're going to go with the cheapest bidder. If it's
Mm-hmm.
asphalt, we're going to look at the cheapest bidder. If it's a stormwater inlet, we're going to go with the cheapest bidder. And then if they're not able to respond that day, we will go to the next in line.
Wow.
So that is the procedure you're going to reuse. You're always going to go back to that chart and go to the cheapest one and move forward. Okay.
Yes.
That was my second question, was
And
asking how you determine which
For
one to
some
call.
things that would, call for more than one item, we would basically just put together a cost opinion real quick because they may be cheaper on this item, but they may be the
Correct.
most expensive on the next item. So it may balance out by the time you put it all in and work the cost estimate up.
And the last question I've got is I understand that under emergency, situations, you have to do what you have to do. But is there a price limit at what point an emergency gets barricaded off and it comes to the upper levels of the commissioner to you before it's moved forward?
During the weekend, this is usually where we have our biggest emergency. I will never let a resident sit and have sewer back into their homes. I just won't do that. And so we don't know what that cost will be. Normally, what we will do, if it's over the $35,000, we will bring it to the commission at the next commission meeting. So I can't give you that answer because I just don't know what that would be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Greg?
I have one more.
Yes, ma'am.
I may embarrass myself by saying this, but this is the first I've heard of this. When did we get these quotes and who decided we were going to go out and get bids? Did any of you know that we were going out to get bids and stuff for this?
I did not know about it until it came across in the packet.
Thank you. Why did we do it?
If you go
Even
back
begin-
to the meetings, I've mentioned the push button kind of bid several times, that we were going out and trying to secure contractors so that we would have them on site and be able to respond very quickly.
I do know that this is, and I want to qualify, my questions do not imply that I don't agree with this system. You'll notice that I don't ask a lot of questions at commission meetings. It's because I usually have my answers before I get here. I sit down with the city manager and I go through all my questions because I want to make sure I'm prepared for the meetings. This particular one, we talked about it Friday, and over the weekend, I went through the agenda again and had some more questions, and that's why I'm asking these questions. But by saying that, I want to let you know that it is a pretty standard procedure. In the military, they call it the IDIQ contract, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts. So, it's a pretty standard kind of contract, even though we've never, dealt with one before.
I just feel like with the question you asked, I think we should have some kind of limit on it because it could get out of hand big time fast
Well,
with weekend work.
yeah,
And-
correct me if I'm wrong, but they can't exceed their budget in that department without coming before us anyway.
Okay,
So we
and
will-
what is that budget in that
Well,
department?
Each department
Each
has their own
department
budget.
has their own budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did approve that budget, so. But that being said, I am a little concerned about it myself. Anytime you have an IDIQ contract or a push-button contract, it's imperative, in my opinion, to make sure you vet the contractor and make sure they're qualified. And in that regards, all three of these contractors have been in Bay County for a long time, have done a lot of work, so I can't say they're not qualified. I think they're fully qualified to do the work.
And will this be kept under that title, push button, so at any time I can say, how much have we spent under this particular program? And we'll know that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just like to say, I think it's always good to have emergency backup.
No doubt.
You never know. You can't plan for accidents. That's why there are accidents and or things going wrong. So I think it's always good to have a helpline if we need it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Anybody else have any more questions for Mr. Lightfoot? Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot. So, is there no discussion with the commission? Any questions with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
I'd say no.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
That's a yes, ma'am. So item 10 passes. Moving on to old business. Discussion and possible approval to set a deadline for removal of RVs and trailers per ordinance 1071. City Manager, I believe you've got something for us on this.
Yes. The commission asked me to go back and look at all of the properties that had RVs on them. And last commission meeting, I think we had a little bit over 175 that at some point had an RV on it. So we went back and we did another report. Code enforcement went out to all of these different properties, and here's what we came up with. There are now 62 addresses with RVs on them. 9 of those addresses have never pulled a permit to rebuild in any way. 7 of the addresses have expired permits. 2 addresses have COs issued. Several addresses had limited permit activity, and looks like they moved back in their home. However, they still have an RV. And then 25 addresses look livable. And so right now, we need some direction as to if you want us to start sending letters out to these 62 addresses with the RVs on them to let them know that either in February, those will need to be gone, or are we going to extend that another 6 or 3 months?
Thank you, ma'am. And since this item is listed as a discussion, I'm assuming we're allowed to discuss this without a motion. So I'm going to start the discussion off by saying that, I mean, it's a sad situation, and I don't want to run anybody out of a home. But at some point, we've got to, you know, set a deadline and make it a hard and fast deadline and move forward. You know, we've got 50-something trailers still. You know, my numbers from the report I've got is that somewhere around 20 of them appeared to have people already moved back in their homes, but the trailer's still there, you know. So I'd like to make the suggestion, you know, after our discussion, that we consider that, send notices to everybody, let them know that the deadline is set firm, and that if you have an individual case that has an issue, that you bring it before the commission and let the commission decide whether you're going to get an extension. That way we don't have a blanket extension. The commission looks at each issue and addresses it individually. That would just be my suggestion anyway. So,
Mayor Pro Tem, I actually will make the motion on that, make the motion that to our deadline where it is. However, if there are citizens with extraneous circumstances, please contact the city. We'll work with you on these things, but I agree with you. We need to keep the deadline where it is and keep moving forward in our rebuild efforts.
thank you. You have a motion?
I'd like the motion to say that they will come before the commission, not just contact the city. Because there are insurance issues
yes,
and things of that nature out
Sure,
there.
I agree. I'll amend it then and say
Yeah.
that if people have extraneous circumstances, please come to your city commission meeting and we'll discuss at that point. So,
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Walker.
This may not be comparing apples to apples, but I remember, I think it was at the last commission meeting where Commissioner Tender mentioned a code enforcement problem that she has been working on for 3 years, and you folks didn't seem to jump in for that. So I'm wondering, can you not help her with the citizen that has been dealing with this code enforcement for 3 years? It would seem appropriate to me if you're going to do it with the others, RVs or trailers.
The difference, I would say, Ms. Walker, is that, and the attorney can correct me if I'm incorrect, we already have a system in place for code enforcement. The trailers are kind of in a limbo situation that was put in place, and we're going to have to deal with that on a per-case basis, in my opinion. But it is on the agenda today to discuss code enforcement issues. So hopefully we can get
I would appreciate
something.
that because
Yes,
it
ma'am.
seems an awful long time, almost her whole reign here, working with one citizen. So I know how diligent she is with every response or request that comes to her. It must be extremely frustrating. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So any others? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say regarding this issue, my sister
If you would just please state your name.
Oh, Jody Moore.
Thank you, ma'am.
Said it
For
earlier.
I know, but it's
Oh,
just for the
okay.
record each time you talk, if you would. That way they've got it on
Will
record.
do. All right, my sister is actually, she lives in Mobile Highlands, and she, believe me, she wants to move back into her house, and she's living in a camper. So what is the deadline again, so I can make sure she knows? She might have gotten
2021, February 2021.
February what?
At the
first?
end, February 28th, I guess
The end
is
of
this year.
February.
Yeah.
And how will they get these notices? Will they be mailed, or are you going to,
Well, I would say that the ones that have permits will be issued because we know about those. The rest of them are going to get code enforcement violations for not having RV permits.
okay. So, and again, they would just have to, I mean, there's no way they're going to be back in their house. It's insurance, so they would have to come before the commission.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and again, they work, so that would be something that would be important for them to be able to come to the commission meeting, so, okay. All right, thank
Thank
you
you,
for the
ma'am.
thank you for the clarification.
Yes,
One
ma'am.
of the things too that we need to, we probably want to do is to send letters to these 62 residents, letting them know that the commission has decided to stick with this date. And then that way, and we'll kind of outline for them what was said here today, so they have some direction,
Yes,
okay? The city will do that.
Yes, ma'am. So any other discussion with the public? Hearing none, city manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Item number 12, discussion and update regarding the potential utilization of the remaining $3,329.34 for the Hurricane Michael relief funds. And I believe Ms. Roman has something for that for us.
Hello. I just wanted to give you an update on the status of the 501c3. Last time we spoke, you were informed that it had been inactivated through a report that had not been filed. Jeff Carter and I together got on the website, paid a fee of $236.25. The 501c3 is again active as of today. That was required for us to be able to disperse the remaining funds, the $33.29. So my recommendation today would be that we issue 3 more grants in, totaling $3,000. That'll leave us with a very small balance. And then my recommendation is that we terminate the 501c3. It was a wonderful program. It served a lot of our community, did a wonderful job, but it has served its purpose. We have only received less than $1,500 in donations this calendar year. Excuse me. And there's a lot of administration associated with this. So there are fees, there's staff time, there's paperwork. It's a big job. And since it has wound down, I believe it's time to terminate the program.
What do we do with the remaining $329? Just absorb it into the city fund, or?
We can take it as administrative costs. We could give out $3,100 or $3,200 in grants if that's what you wanted to do, but we are entitled to take some administrative costs.
My vote would be to give it to the next 3
Split it equally between, split the full balance equally between the next.
and then close it.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Okay, I'll make the motion then that we do what's being discussed here, that we split the 33-29-34 equally between 3 randomly chosen citizens that have applied for this program, and that we close the 501c3 once that money has been dispersed.
Second.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion with the commission?
I have a discussion, unfortunately, about
Fine,
this.
ma'am.
Vicki and I met on Thursday, and I was told by 3 different people that we reopened this 5013C. And I kept saying, why is there not a signature? Why is there not a signature? That means that anybody can go into your LLC, my LLC, and just restore if we don't activate, or if we let it go inactive. And there indeed is a signature, because somebody brought me this after I had met with you, and it's got your signature on it, Brandon. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
So you did sign it
No, I did not. I gave power of attorney to the attorney when they were there.
to electronically file. Then why was I told nobody had to sign it?
It was an electronic signature, ma'am.
So I had to say, did anybody electronically sign it?
Perhaps I misunderstood your question. Mr. Carter and I were on the telephone. We contacted Commissioner. He gave his approval to go ahead and reinstate and pay the fees.
Okay,
That's my misunderstanding, and I apologize for that.
okay. And you misunderstood too? Because you and I talked about it for 30 minutes.
And actually, I did not even know, and they probably will attest to this, that Commissioner Aldrich had signed off on that.
Oh, that's what was brought to me after. It's got his signature on it, on the bottom.
And so no one thinks that anything, again, nefarious is going on. Is a situation where I was going about my workday, they're going about their workday. They call because the bank needs an approval. And I have our legal counsel on there saying, Brandon, this is fine. This is status quo. We just need to get it open so we can disperse this money back to the citizens.
Right.
So, of course, I gave approval. I mean, I said, well, yeah, sign the document then so we can get this money dispersed, or we can close this thing out and be done with it. And that's really the extent of it.
And none of us, the other 3 of us or 4 of us, whoever, our directors in this were notified.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I was notified out of the blue as well, so.
You had directed us that you wanted the funds to be dispersed. This was the only way to make sure that the funds were dispersed. We had to reactivate the 501c3.
Okay. It's pretty scary to me. But anyway, thank you.
Any other discussion with the commission? Yes, Ms. Walker. Thank you, Kiki.
I'm going to address this question to you, but I think you're going to have to pass it over to Mr. Aldridge. I would like to know which attorney you gave the permission to sign this.
I believe I can answer that.
Well, that person has never been on this paperwork. The initiating paperwork for this 501c3 was Holland and Knight of Jacksonville, and the registered agent is Corporate Creations Network. So I don't believe, my personal opinion, that Mr. Carter was involved in this, because it has Margot's name, Mr. Perno's name, Mr. Aldrich's name, Ms. Tinder's name, and your name. So nowhere on this, that doesn't appear to me to be the correct way to do that.
But he was acting as a legal counsel for the city at the time.
But neither were these legal counsels that were on the original paperwork.
Yeah, I
Mr.
mean,
Robos?
the way those articles were set up, it would automatically update, as the commission changed. So that would happen automatically. So basically, every January, when you do your annual report, you would just put in there on the Secretary of State's website who your current commissioners are, and that would be your board. Apparently, nobody renewed it last year in January. They just didn't file the annual report, and that's why it was administratively dissolved. There was no action taken to dissolve it. It was just you didn't pay your $125 and got dissolved. So that's the time where you would just automatically see who's sitting up here on the commission, and they would get plugged in, and that's just an administrative, thing that somebody on the staff would do, really. So, it got dissolved. All they were doing was correcting that and paying that fee with whatever little late fee there was, and that was it. So, and any one of the board members any commissioner could authorize that, just to be sure it was administratively reinstated. So now you guys can do something with those funds. And then formally dissolve it. You'd file some articles of dissolution once all the money's gone, and that goes with the Secretary of State, and it's over.
And had you not decided to divide the remaining 32,000 amongst
3,200.
3,200 amongst the 3 new recipients, what would you have done with the money?
This commission had to decide either way, it had to be reinstated. Because the corporation had, or the nonprofit has to stay instated with the state.
Right, and had you dissolved, you would have had to give all that money to another 501c3 according to your bylaws on this particular LLC.
Nonprofit, yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Walker.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I think you've failed to separate two things, the corporation and the 501c3. Your corporation was canceled by the state of Florida. Along with that, that means you can't do anything. That stops it. You didn't know that. You weren't told that. And you didn't do anything. Okay? So they stopped you. Then you had to take a look and reinstate with the state of Florida your corporation, and then keep on with your 501c3. What happened here is you have a board that sits on all these. You didn't tell your board. You didn't know anything about it. When you made the decision to reinstate the state of Florida, you failed to even ask your board. That's what the concern is here. Yes, but you're getting out of it by the way of saying, you're going to dissolve this 501c3. Then you're going to dissolve the corporation. Okay, that's fine. And you're going to stay with the 501c3 IRS rules and send the money away. Good, you're giving it to another charity and exactly what you're supposed to do. What I see here is the right hand did not tell the left hand what they were doing. That's bad if you don't know what you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Ms. Arlene, I believe I saw your hand up.
Arlene Harrison. I wanted to know how, it was mentioned that the three more people that would receive these grants would, how are they chosen?
There's a selection committee that chooses the names, and just for the record, I am not on that committee.
Well, it was mentioned that there's just randomly chosen. And
Well,
I don't know if you're picking names out of a hat or what. Is it based on need?
It is based on need, and we have 2 people that go through those applications, which there are thousands of them, and choose 3 people, and then after that, they do a little research. I think it's Julie and Mr. Janke, and then they send code enforcement out to see if that person still lives there, and then they come back and they bring it to the commission for the commission to approve.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Arlene, you did bring up a good point, though, because the motion did say that it'll be a random selection. So we may want to amend that motion to follow the current procedures that we're having. So thank you for that, ma'am.
Yes, and let me state the reason I put it that way is because there's no pre-chosen, pre-planned person. That was my only point in saying that. It's goes before a committee. No one has anyone in mind about who's going to get the money. It's literally not at random because it does take need into account, but anyone that has applied has a chance at that money. Let's put it that way.
Do you think we need to amend that motion, or are we good with that motion, sir?
I mean, you can clarify it, for the record. But
Okay.
it's basically,
Yes.
like you said, as
Following
the
current
program,
procedure.
the current procedures in place. Right.
Well, then I'll amend the motion then, and I'll say that we will go along with the processes that have been in place since this program has continued that process through to the end, distribute the 3329, and then we will shut down and dissolve the LLC and 501c3 at that time.
Thank you. Thank you for amending the motion. Commissioner Tender, would you be willing to amend their second?
Amended.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So we have a motion and a second. We've already taken care of discussion. Is there any other discussion with the public? None? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
That's 3 more families helped, by the way.
Yes.
Good job.
Yes. And it may not be a popular topic, but Mayor Anderson has 100% credit for that. And,
Yep.
and everybody needs to remember that she did something really good for the city with that. So, moving on to agenda item number 13, discussion regarding implementing more stringent code enforcement regulations. Commissioner Tender, I believe, since this is a discussion item, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you. This is what Mrs. Walker was alluding to a little bit earlier. There has been one code enforcement issue that I've been dealing with for 3.5 years. Currently, I'm excited to say that the city has gone on this property, somewhat cleaned it up, and I'm not trying to be picky, but I think if we brought Chief Ramey in, he would totally agree with me. Somewhat picked it up. It's in a neighborhood where the homes are worth millions on the water. And this man intends to live his dying day out, I'm sure, there without touching anything. So, as you know, when you come before code enforcement, we immediately start putting liens on your property, even if it's just the first $200 for the hearing. So this gentleman, right now, I believe Chief Ramey just told me he's up to over $28,000 that we have a lien on his property. In order to finish the job and clean up his property, fill in his pool, which has not had water in it other than a mosquito tub for over 20 years, fill in his pool and make this something that isn't offensive to the neighbors. People are trying to sell their property over there and they can't because of this piece of property. And he has managed to talk every official into postponing that he was going to have surgery and more surgery and more surgery. But bottom line, we've got to come up with a plan or something that has more teeth in it for our code enforcement to do something. There are people out there that they don't care how much they give us on a lien, because it doesn't happen until they either die or until the home is sold. But then we become their constant landscaping company if we want to maintain the code enforcement. And I don't know what to do. I'm just know that something needs to be done so this doesn't continue to happen. I'm very excited to go buy another piece of property that we've been dealing with for months and months, that the neighbors call me on a regular basis. And Chief Ramey told me that one's being cleaned up today. So it'll be very exciting to go by and see how that's coming along. I just feel like the code enforcement issues like this, these things that just go on and on and on for months and years, we need to have more control over it. And if it's going to cost another $10,000 for the city to clean up these yards so the neighbors can even have company without being embarrassed, or neighbors cannot let their children outside. This is a different location where these people have left this home with pods and trash and dumpsters and sheds and a group of pit bulls in a shed, that these dogs now chase the neighbor children and stuff like that. Who wants to live in that kind of atmosphere? So I think we need to come up with something stronger for this type of person. Most of the people that I'm sure Carrie or whoever would agree with me on this, most people that receive a code enforcement issue fix it. You know, I mean, they're given 30 to 45 days and things of that nature. But these are real issues that only hurt our community. They're an eyesore beyond belief. And it's not fair to the other people who live around them. But I don't know what to do, because like this man, rather than hire a yearly landscaping company, would rather pay us close to $30,000 when he sells his home. And he's not 80 or 90 years old. So, I mean, we have to be able to come up with some more regulation that we can enforce, not just, you know, say this is going to happen, but something that we can do. And nothing should take 3 years. There's no reason for that at all. So
I would agree with that too, ma'am. But maybe Mr. Obos has some ideas or suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, a couple things to keep in mind. I mean, you've got the code enforcement. I'm sorry. You've got the code enforcement process where you just have your fines, and you can, you accumulate fines, and like you said, you put a lien on the property for the fines, and nothing really happens there unless it's sold or refinanced, or they voluntarily pay it. Obviously, you could always sue to get a judgment on that, but that's going to put you in the same place where you just have a judgment lien against somebody. The other process is the nuisance abatement process, which actually would run separately. And I've got the code here, and I'll look through it to see what we could do to tweak it. But what we've seen in several of the other cities in the county and across the state is that nuisance abatement process has more teeth. Again, you've got an unfit and unsafe structure, something that needs to be demolished, can't be lived in. You give them all their notices and tell them they've got 30 days to come pull a permit and get it done. If they don't do it, the city manager typically is the one that can actually issue the order of abatement. Again, you've got to have some money in the budget to do these things. That's what a lot of the cities were running up against, that there might be 100 unfit, unsafe structures, so you don't really have $2 million sitting around to do it, but you kind of take them one at a time. And when the city spends money to go and abate that nuisance, tear that house down, or clean up the yard, and they're using city funds, that would be a nuisance abatement lien, which can be treated a little bit differently than a code enforcement lien, in the sense that if we change our code, there's an opportunity to actually make that a special non-ad valorem assessment, so you can actually throw that money on the tax bill the next year. And that way, it will get paid, or they're at risk of losing that property if they, just like if you don't pay your taxes for 3 years. So that's where you can get some teeth in a nuisance abatement situation. There's nothing you can really do about code enforcement fines. That's just they build up, like you said. But if you do have to go and spend $10,000 or $8,000 with a contractor to go and clean up a property, you can put that $8,000, whatever it is. You do a lien. And then one of the ways to collect that lien is to actually put it, wound up on your tax bill the next year. Kind of like when you see, just like any other assessment, like if you see people have a fire assessment or a stormwater assessment, there'd be a nuisance abatement assessment, and you might only have 4 properties on it that particular year. And hopefully that goes down to nothing. You don't have this issue. But that's something we could look at, that we've done in some other cities, and there's other cities in the state that have done it, to get you some more teeth and actually have a chance to recover some of that money, as opposed to just spending it and waiting on that lien to get paid if the property ever sells. So that's on the nuisance properties. The other one, to maybe make things a little more streamlined, is to look at possibly going away from the Chapter 162, which is your typical statutory code enforcement system, where you have a code enforcement board. I know we've delegated that to a magistrate, which is fine, but it's still under that Chapter 162 and all the rules and timelines that entails. If you'll notice, I think you guys put the copy of the statute in the packet. It says in that statute that this is just meant to be one avenue to do it. There's nothing that says the city can't do it another way. And what they're saying there is that every city has home rule authority, and we can come up with our own process. And so one of the things that we've seen in most of the other cities in the county is give your code enforcement officer the authority to actually levy that fine. It doesn't have to. It only goes to the magistrate if you appeal the fine. So in other words, it's just like getting a ticket. Now, obviously, you go out there and you'll say, okay, this is going to take. You've got 10 days to mow your grass. And if you do it, we're done. You're not going to get a fine or anything. But you go back out there in that 10 days and you haven't done it, we'll say, okay, well, here's a $50 fine. If you don't like that $50 fine, then you, the citizen, have to make the initiative and appeal it to come see the magistrate. If you don't, then whenever the next magistrate hearing is, they'll just get a list of, hey, these 5 people did not appeal their fine. It gets put in part of an order and becomes a lien. So that's another thing that can streamline. You can streamline that process so it's not, give them 30 days, we'll go again, check again, give another 30 days or 14 days, whatever it winds up being. That you don't just run around in circles and then you actually ultimately have to take it to a magistrate. So you're sometimes 90 days down the road before a fine gets issued, and you're talking about high grass and weeds, which is something that should be taken care of, or at least fined, much sooner. So that's another thing to look at. And I think you have a good magistrate. I know Al Stopka has been doing that, and he does a really good job. So I don't think anything would change, from that aspect. It would just make it it would streamline it, put the onus on the citizen to make that appeal, as opposed to us having to take every potential fine to the magistrate to get it official. So there's a couple things, to look at and think about to kind of give yourself some more teeth and streamline the
The
process.
city would set those fines? Because right now, we don't have a set fine rate. The magistrate determines how much he wants to fine him, right?
Right, and so what you'll see is the city can, or the commission
Like a fee
can do a fee schedule that you can update from year to year. And, some, I know like out at Panama City Beach, there might be, 120 different violations on there. Others, you leave some more leeway, like, okay, no more than $250 and keep it kind of broad and give some discretion. And I think it's okay to give the code enforcement officers some discretion there. When you're dealing with, am I going to do $50 or $100 or $250, depending on what it is.
I
But
would
you could always
agree.
do a schedule as well.
Whether you give them a warning or fine them,
Mhm.
depending on whether they're a habitual offender or if it's a first-time offense type thing.
Right.
Okay.
And I agree with a lot of this. I think we also, when we do this, I think we have to be very cautious about finding people right off the bat for things that we end up going back and saying, you were right, we're wrong. We should have not come out here to begin with. That's not good. We don't want, I personally don't think it's a good idea to file somebody, a $250 fine on for their grass not being mowed. Code enforcement has been to my neighbor's house. His grass, if I went out there with the ruler, he could have had some weeds up 12 inches, but he also just lost his wife 2 months before, and he wasn't in the mood to mow his grass, so he didn't care. We had got another neighbor to mow his grass so he wouldn't find out about it, snatched the ticket off his door because he would have just died 1,000 deaths. And as it turned out, the guy who ran and mowed it, he goes, why'd you mow my grass? He goes, so the city wouldn't come after you. So it all backfired anyway. But I think we have to look out for things like that. We don't want, and code enforcement also, our code enforcement does a great job. Let me tell you, when I call them, they always have the answers for what I ask. And so it's not a reflection on them, but it's part of that procedure that I don't think we can just go out and automatically hit them with a big fine, because then we're going to end up paying money back if it turns out that they should have never fined them to begin with, or should not have come out there, and that has happened. I like your idea
Right,
to
yeah,
make it quicker.
and I'm certainly not saying that should really ever happen. You should, like your process right here in the agenda, you either see something or somebody complains, you go do the inspection, you make contact, then you just do your notice of violation, which is not a fine. It's just,
Right.
you've got 7 days to do it, or, somebody's grieving or whatever, you give them 2 weeks to do it. And I think your code enforcement officers have that discretion, absolutely, to look at those situations. So it's only after they ignore that
Warning.
Yeah.
notice of violation that you say, okay, well, here's your fine. And if you don't think you should be fined this, then you take it to the magistrate and tell your story.
I like that idea.
So maybe we should entertain a motion for the commission to direct the attorney to look at setting up a system for the city.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion, but I'd like to add more discussion if I could.
Of course, yeah. Motion and second, so yes, sir.
I think what we're talking about is, in Commissioner Tenner's point, is gross negligence. Is when someone habitually breaks the code. We need to put something in the code enforcement about negligence. So, if it's been 3 times and there, or however many we decide, and we get to the point where they're just breaking the law. So
I agree to that too. That should be part of it.
yeah. So
Right,
there
you
should
can put some repeat offender language in there.
Or
The fines go higher, or there's stuff like that. And then just also to be clear, really, there's 2 different discussions. One is the first one, which I think the motion was to sort of move away from the Chapter 162 and go to the more streamlined process where you have, the appeal to the magistrate. And that's fine. The second one would be, and I haven't totally looked at all of it, but to look at your nuisance abatement to see if you want to put in place the opportunity to do the non-ad valorem assessment. So really that'd be two different two different actions. And, you know, and there are some, you know, there's some concerns, you know, do we want to put a nuisance abatement lien on somebody's tax bill? And, you know, it seems a little, at the same time, you're out there spending $18,000-$20,000 of taxpayer money that you may never see until somebody sells their house or passes away or something.
Right.
And it's because, and on the nuisance abatement, it's not going to be, oh, you've got 10 days to do this. It's going to be, you know, 30 or 45. It's certainly because you're demolishing a structure. You've got to get permits. You've got to do that stuff. And so those are a little more, you know, rare, obviously, but I do think it's a good tool to have in the toolbox to recoup that money that the city spends when we have it.
Okay, so is any others of the commission?
You know, I just for 1 second say I agree with both. And I want to echo kind of what Commissioner Perno said. This is not the city out to get anyone or look for problems or any of that. This is gross negligence. I have a house myself, Commissioner Tender, that I've watched or ridden by for 2 years. No one's touched it. Not a single person's touched it. And I've even had homeowners around it, because it affects their property values, offer to buy the home, and the people won't sell it. They won't do anything with it. It still has a white thing on the roof. And I agree with you. That's just someone that doesn't live here and doesn't really care. And we need, you know, the 95% of citizens that take care of their homes and their yards and their property values need to be protected from the ones that just, quite frankly, do not care.
So, we'll go to public commentary in just a minute, because I know Mr. Finch has already raised his hand and wants to say something. But as of now, what was the chapter?
Well, right now we have a Chapter 162
Right.
system.
So that's the motion
it'd be
on the floor. Commissioner Tender, do you want to amend the motion to include the nuisance abatement, or do we just want to move forward with your motion?
I would like to include the,
Nuisance
nuisance abatement for habitual.
Right. I mean, and that's more of do we want to have the availability to put that on the tax roll as a assessment, basically.
Okay.
When, you know, again, when you do an abatement.
Okay. So
The abatement, I think, is important, because we might get our money a few years before.
okay. So
you know.
you're wanting to amend your motion to include that?
Do both.
And I'm not pressing you. I'm just trying
No.
to make sure we understand what we're voting on before we vote, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion that we,
You can handle it separately.
Yeah.
let's add that to my motion.
Okay, so we're adding the nuisance.
We're adding the
That's a
nuisance
motion.
assessment.
How about the second?
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion with the commission? Nope. All right, Mr. Finch, I believe under public commentary, I think you'd already had your hand up, sir.
Talking about, you know, doing these liens and stuff, which is a good idea. You know, main thing, if somebody's living in that house, an old man, he won't get out, that's a serious problem. You might have to go through some stuff. But these houses that nobody's in and all, you need to lien them, you need to tear them down, you need to put the deal on them, you need to go through and do the thing. I got fined $200 by the city about not cutting my grass by the park up there, that vertical pie shape coming across there, fined $200. So I come to the city and I paid the $200, and I said, hell, you need to find more than me, you need to find a bunch of people. And code enforcement, you know, my mother said it don't take a whole lot to get clean, and bar soap's cheap. So cutting grass and hold it, but they charged me $200. So I come pay the $200. In the meantime, you know, the lawyer the magistrate, I guess, filed the lien. I don't know if he's on a percentage. If it is, it's good, because he filed it pretty fast. So I started to sell a $2 million piece of property. And then they called me up and said, we got the title insurance says there's a $200 lien against the property. I said, well, what the hell? It can't be, you know, whatever. And it was a Lynn Haven lien. So I called Vicki, and she was gracious enough to call him up and say, okay, he's paid the fine. You know, it was a couple more days. Well, they wanted it in writing, and they were in New Jersey sending the money out the title insurance company, but we got it straightened out. But the liens do work, and it was a $200 deal, but they liened all my property. So D.R. Horton, which is a big outfit, you know, they went and said, hey, you know, we're not paying until we get that letter. So we had to get the letter, and Vicki worked it out. We got it. But these houses need to be tore down, tear them down, and if somebody's in a swimming pool and all that, you need to have a lawyer research how much is owed on it. If there's nothing owed on a $300,000 piece of property, you can put some money in it to get it cleaned up for the neighborhood. You'll get your money back. And if you find somebody and have to give the money back to them, you ain't out nothing. You give it was their money. So the code enforcement needs to go forward, and it's just like a speeding ticket. When you get it, pay it, or sooner or later they're gonna take your license or whatever. But cleaning the city up's paramount, you know. But the liens do work, cause like I say, I did it whatever. I said, Vicki, you got to help me here. They got $2 million and they won't give it to me. So it was a $200 grass cutting fine, and that's what it. So there's some teeth in it. Have a workshop, put some teeth in a lot of stuff, and get on with cleaning up the city.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Miss Arlene.
Arlene Harrison. I just wanted to clarify, we do not currently have a nuisance abatement ordinance, right? And
We
this-
do. We just don't have the ability to put it on as an assessment and put it on the tax roll the following year to recoup
Okay.
that money sooner.
So, and to clarify, the motion that's on the floor, that would then do that?
It would allow us to come back. We'd have to come back with an ordinance, obviously, and have a couple of readings and discuss it some
Okay.
more, but it would be to put that procedure in place
Okay.
going
Thank you.
forward.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Jody Moore, I just have a question. If you're talking about this person that is just living in this house, you know, just over and over collecting these liens, and then you're talking about attaching their taxes, what if they really don't have an income? So, I mean, are there any more teeth? I mean, are we talking about jail time if they don't pay the fines? What if they just let these fines continue to collect too? They're still just gonna sit there and, I mean, yeah. He's over there shaking his head, no.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I mean,
Well,
you're still in the same situation where the fines are just gonna collect and the money, so I didn't know if there were any other.
You're right. He may not even be paying his taxes for all I know, the person I'm talking about.
Right, yeah, and again, two different things. I mean, one
Hopefully
is
it's
just the fines for code enforcement violations where you just get the 250 and they rack up, and the other is actual money spent to make an improvement to the property. Those are the only ones that you can actually put it on the tax bill, because you have to improve the property, improve the real estate. The other ones, you're right, you still file the lien and it'll just sit there, you know, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it, but.
And there's no way to force a lien to be paid, right?
Well, again, you can sue to foreclose that lien, but at the end of the day, you know, if they don't have the money, it's just like if you get sued and get a judgment against you and don't have the money, it's just a paper judgment. You
If the city was to
search for their assets.
If the city was to sue to force a lien and they got the judgment, would that not force the sale of the property?
It could. You can try to. Yeah, you could. It just depends if there's, you know, what equities there, what assets they have. So, and it's very rare we ever see just a code enforcement fine get to the level where you sue to foreclose somebody.
Very rarely do you see a code enforcement fine get to $28,000.
Well, I agree. But, you know, if there's abatements to be done, I think that's the clearer path to, you know, you don't really have those equitable arguments in front of a judge that says, well, you know, I could feel bad. We actually spent $20-something thousand improving your property because you refused to do it, and so we're on the better side of the
So
equitable
in the future,
equation
we
there.
need to go the abatement method instead of code enforcement with
If it's
bigger
an
job.
unfit, unsafe structure, you know, meets all the qualifications, yes.
All right. Any other discussion with the public?
Which also means we need to include in our budget more money for code enforcement to make sure that these things happen.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the issue.
Budget's already voted on, so you're gonna have to wait for the mid-year on that one.
Excuse me?
I said you're gonna have to wait for mid-year on that one.
Yeah.
So, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Commissioner Tender. New business, item 14. First reading by title only of ordinance 1100 Small Scale Future Land Use Map Amendment, 809 and 813 Pennsylvania Avenue, from low density residential to public industrial. No action is necessary on this item, so City Planner, would you, or do you want to read it? Who's going to read it for us?
I'll read it.
Okay, thank you, City Manager.
An ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from low density residential to public institutional for an approximate 1.032 plus acres of property located on Pennsylvania Avenue in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. No action is necessary, so we're going to move on to item 15. The next several items are related to the rebuild of the city. And for those people that are listening on the internet, if you did not get a chance to watch the workshop, I would highly recommend you go back and watch it, so at least you can get an idea of what the buildings are potentially going to look like, the floor plans and that kind of stuff. Stating that, item 15, discussion and possible approval to move forward with the preliminary design of the sports complex with DAG Architect. City Manager, I believe you got something for us.
Yes, we just need the commission's okay to move forward so that they can put those design elements into their software and continue to move this project forward. This is basically what it is. It's getting your okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Motion to approve.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion with the commission?
I have one question for the city manager. This doesn't have anything to do with phase 1 that we've already approved for the sports complex. This is just to give them
Design.
approval to do more design.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I have to say I'm excited for today. Anytime we do something moving forward with the city for the rebuild, I'm just ready for us to get back on track.
Yes.
Is any other discussion with the commission?
I echo your sentiment. I'm very excited about this part.
Yes, ma'am. Any discussion with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Pass. Item number 16, discussion and possible approval to give DAG Architect permission to assist the facility maintenance director with securing demolition of the second story of the concession stand at the sports complex and design plans for a secure single-story structure. City Manager?
Yes, this was not included in the original part of the DAG's task order, but as we began to look at what needed to be done, the numbers that came back the first time several months ago were really, really high. I think in one of commission meetings, one of the commissioners said we could really probably do this ourselves with a little help from the design element from DAG. And the only thing that we're asking for here is for DAG to help us with the demolition and to put a design in place that's structurally sound, and then the city will take it over from there.
So this is a discussion item. I did talk to Joe Footen about it, and originally I thought we could maybe keep, both floors and just fix the shell of the building, but there's some structural damage to the trusses that are going to have to be addressed, and that's the reasoning for us to just go ahead and rip the second floor off and redo it. That being said, it's a discussion item, so y'all have anything you'd like to discuss?
Do we have a cost yet? What it'll cost?
I believe there was an estimate in your packet, I believe.
It was a cost savings, I believe.
Was it?
Yes. I don't remember the numbers off my head, but.
Cost savings. I think for the design element, if I'm not mistaken, and Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong, was that 25,000? Yes.
25,000 to design the second floor of the concession stand?
And to get all of perform the demolition in terms of them getting the demolition off the second floor as well.
So that includes everything? To demo it, design it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
just to elaborate on that, the current restroom facility does not meet ADA standards, so it's an upgrade on that. We had a meeting with the kitchen consultant, and basically it's the same kitchen consultant that provides services for a number of years. They know how the park works, what food sells, what doesn't, so they're doing an equipment layout for that new concession stand, so it's electrical, plumbing, and HVAC coordination with the new equipment layout. There are some structural deficiencies that we're having to address.
Oh,
And so
I'm
it's
sorry,
also-
if you would.
I'm sorry, there's some structural deficiencies that have to be addressed as well. So that's kind of a full scope of our limited design service for you guys.
Just out of curiosity, who is your kitchen consultant?
Joyce was the lady's name. I don't know the
Oh, so
company.
somebody that works here?
No, she was actually a vendor for several years that did our concession stand, and we went to her because she does do a lot of the concession stands. And one thing the commission may want to look to in the future is bringing back a vendor to run concession stands. That may be something we want to look at.
Thanks.
Thank you. So,
I'll make the motion to approve giving DAG the permission to design and demo the second
Okay.
store.
all right, so we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion with the commission?
This was going to be like a $400,000 building when they first looked at that. 600,
was
thank you.
gonna be
Yes, I agreed with Mr. Finch on that back when he was
645.
pitching a fit about it before. I said a concession stand for 645 is crazy. I agree. So we're coming in with a good deal here and a good quality.
Anybody discussion with the public or commission? Any discussion with the public? Yes, sir, Mr. Finch.
There was $645,000. I went out there and looked at it, and I said, "There's no way." You know, I said, "There's 2 stories." I come up here and I says, "I'll fix the whole thing for, I think, $65,000. Keep this 2-story in the whole deal," and y'all wasn't interested. But y'all wanted $25,000. But if you want the 2-story and the structure fixed, I'll fix it free. Donate it to the city. You keep the $25,000, use it for the design layout. But if those trusses, you pull the top off, put some new trusses on, fix the whole thing, it was around $65,000. If you want to do that, I'll do it for you free. Last time I was going to fix that building, y'all turned it down. So, but it's whatever you want to do. But $25,000, I think that's a pretty bad deal. If you can get it free with the 2 stories. If you want the 2 stories on it, it'd be a little less than that, but a lot faster to tear off the top. But it was $650,000. That's why I was jumping up and down. I said, "There's no way that we can pay $650,000 for a concession stand." Plus, the design had another $650,000 one on the field down there. That's the only thing I'm saying. Or, because y'all told me y'all was going to have the city employees fix it. I said, if I can do all the superstructure, all the heavy work, take the top off, use the hoist crane, whatever, put the new trusses on, fix it, turn it over to them. Now they'd have to put the windows in and paint it and fix up the bathroom. None of this is nothing to do with the kitchen. I'm talking about just the structure itself. If y'all interested in that, I'll do that.
With that being said, I'd like to rescind my motion and pull this off the agenda. And the reason I say that is because I want to make sure we got to go through, I don't want to make a motion today without getting legal advice, without making sure we're all good. I don't doubt you, Mr. Finch, at all. I think it's a heartfelt thing, but.
You don't understand what free is?
Okay, so I need some clarification. He made a motion, he seconded it. If he rescinds it, then the motion's dead, right?
Right, he's rescinding his motion.
Okay.
I mean, somebody else can make the
Okay.
same motion.
And then my motion is that we put this back on the next agenda. That gives us a couple of weeks to make sure that everything's on the up and up. That's all, transparency. That's all I care about. So,
You can table it, basically.
yeah, we'll just table it.
Next
We'll
meeting.
put it back on the
So-
next meeting. Yes,
So then I would need a motion to table it, right?
that's what I just did.
Okay, so we have a
Second.
motion to table it to the next commission meeting.
And then we consider Mr. Finch's offer.
Well, that we consider item 16 as written.
Okay.
But, I mean, obviously it's a discussion item, so obviously we could discuss James Finch's offer as well.
Yeah, we can. I mean,
I'm talking about, yeah.
I'll second the table.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table item 16. Is there any discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Hearing none, city manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes, and yep, that was item 16. I just want to make sure I was reading the right number. Okay, moving on to item 17, discussion and possible approval to give DAG Architect permission to assist the city facility director with the plans with the partial plans designed for the facilities maintenance building.
Again, the city has found some ways to save money. We have an excellent facility maintenance department who's done some awesome work. And a facilities director came to me and said, you know, we have the ability to find a prefab building that could cost us less. The only thing that we would need is some support from the design standpoint, and we recognize that. With this building would come in under budget. This building has already been budgeted under FEMA for about $502,000. Just what we're looking at right now, we probably will come in somewhere around $415,000 if we go this route in terms of allowing DAG to help us do some of the structural design, and then the city takes on the rest.
Okay, so this is a discussion of possible approval items. Is there any discussion with the commission?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
What does DAG want to charge for this building?
I think that was $35,000.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay. The motion dies for lack of a second.
So we're not going to save money from for the city? That's what we just voted on?
We voted on not spending
We didn't vote on anything.
thousands.
Well,
You're right.
yeah, we hadn't voted yet, yes. but
Yes,
what we're talking about.
thousands in design for a metal building.
All right, so that's item 17. Moving on to item 18. Discussion, well, okay. All right, discussion and possible approval to move forward with the preliminary design of the police department and city hall with Florida Architects.
Florida Architect did do the presentation today, and we are again at a point where we need for them to move forward with the design, putting it into their software system to get going. I think he gave us a date of March, yes, March 19th.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission? Hearing none, any discussion with the public? Hearing none. City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Item 18 passes. Item 19, discussion and approval to allow Florida Architects to include the old City Hall in the municipal design. This is discussion and a design approval. For those that weren't at the workshop this morning, the plan as presented is to keep the original portion of the building with the tower in place and to remove the newer portion, which was, my understanding at one point, was the fire department. They're going to take it back to the original building and then hopefully do some kind of courtyard or something in that area. So that being said, is there any discussion with the commission? None?
I would say that I think that this is something that I've heard a lot of input on from citizens. You know, a lot of citizens do still want to keep that spire, which, and I do too, I'm one of them. I'm a history person myself, so I like that that's part of the original structure. So I'd be happy to make the motion to approve, seeing how we can save some of that historic building for our posterity.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 20, discussion and approval to give the city manager authority to move forward with the preliminary plans to demolish the library. This is another discussion item. So it is, I believe, the intent for the city, hopefully, to consider tearing down the old city library and building a new media library center next to the senior center, or senior activity club facility. That's a mouthful. So this is being a discussion item. Any discussion with the commission?
Well, I'm just curious, have we gotten bids yet for what? Have we gotten any bids for what it's going to cost?
In terms of what Florida Architect is going to do, or how much it's going to cost for demolition?
Yeah. But do the architects have something to do with tearing it down?
This item's actually for the demolition of the library. So, but a contract for demolition would still have to come back before us. This is just giving her permission to move forward to start the process.
Okay, so.
Before money's spent, it's still going to have to come back before this commission.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I make the motion to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion with the commission? Hearing none, any discussion? Yes, ma'am. I believe you got something you want to say.
Yes. Mr. Sorcy wanted to get up and say a few words.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sorcy.
I just wanted to explain that we're looking to save money in the demolition of both the fire station and the library, combining them and getting one contract. But a asbestos survey has to be done, so we're going to get that done for DEP permit to demolish those portions, and then restore that area in the corner of Sheffield Park, where Sheffield Park will expand to, and get that pond ready to receive the stormwater from that area. So it's kind of dovetails all together, but trying to get one demolition contractor and save some money.
Thank you, sir. So, any other discussion with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Parno?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell?
Yes, I'm going to say yes, even though I hate to see us lose that library, but I understand the grand plan. I think when we're all done, I think we're going to be very happy with the product. So, moving on to number 21, discussion and possible approval to move forward with the proposal from Mont McDonald for the fire department, fire department, public works, and library facility. City Manager?
Yes, I'm going to ask that Billy Perry come front and talk to the commission. As you remember, we did have 3 architects firms that we kind of divided the work for it to move a little bit faster. This is where Mott McDonald comes in. He's been working with myself and the department heads to get to a point that we could bring it to the commission.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks for the consideration. We've met with Chief DeLange and went over all of the things that are going on at the fire department. I will say to you that there are some fairly critical things going on in the High Bay area. We've got some columns that are in pretty bad shape and really need to be corrected. Our proposal on that job is for restoration of all of the Hurricane Michael damages. There were some other areas where Chief DeLange has pursued a grant for hardening and so forth, but that will come at a later date. We did prepare a document that would allow for moving forward with that if you so choose at a particularly an appropriate time. But the initial is to repair all of the damages and get the high bay back in good shape and totally restored. So that will require some fairly tricky work in some areas. That high bay area, to be able to rework some of the columns and so forth. The intent is to totally resheath both the roof and wall structure. There's quite a bit of structural damage in the way of lost girts and purlins and those types of things. And then we've got to get it to a point where we can come in and high-pick lift the rafter system in that area where we have that damaged column and replace that column. We looked at opportunities to actually repair the base of that column, but I think that the more appropriate thing to do to make sure that we get something really sound is to replace that entire column. And we'll have all of the facility there in the form of cranes and so forth to do that work anyway. So I think that would be good. A couple of enhancements on that facility as a part of this rebuild. When it was originally constructed, They had the columns sitting on, just flush down on the slab, and that has led to, because they do a lot of wash down in there, that has led to a lot of deterioration of the base of those columns. So when we go back with it, we're gonna build an 8-inch curb up, so that we're not taking metal panels and any of the columns that we put back down to the ground. Now, the ones that are already there, we'll encase those in the concrete in that curb. So that should allow for that wash down and keep them from damaging those going forward. So looking at some replacement on some of the space heaters in the area and some fans and so forth to improve the work conditions in that area too. So that's the fire department. Move over to the public works. Quite a bit of damage over there, particularly some of your out storage areas. You had in bay on one of your 5-bay equipment storage areas that totally blew to the ground, and it damaged essentially 2 bays of that structure. So we'll be putting together a package for the repair of that system. Over at the main facility, that one as well will have a package that does a replacement of the sheathing, both wall and roof on that. Looks like somebody went in with a scatter gun and shot the roofs of that. A lot of holes in the roof and everything. So those will be replaced, and we'll be upgrading the large overhead doors as a part of that process, and adding to the back end of that a larger meeting space and break space to accommodate approximately 40 folks. And then they asked as well for, on the north side of that facility in the work bays, they have a large open canopy area where they can work outside of the building. They asked for a price to allow to put one in on the south side as well. So we put a number in for putting that package together for you. And then for the library, which would be placed over here just south of the senior center, we've got a package put together there to work with the city in a planning program to try to help develop exactly what it is that you want to build within your budgets. So we have that process that we'll go through and help develop that for you, and then with your approval, then move forward with final designs on that. The media center will be substantially smaller, about half the size of what you had before, to try to stay within budget. So be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner, have any questions? No? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very much. So this is a discussion and possible approval items. So is there any discussion with the commission?
So this company's gonna demolish the library, or they're gonna design the new library?
This contract will have them redesign the new library.
And then they'll come to us with a cost on everything they're doing.
I believe the costs are in your packet.
There's a cost estimate in your packet.
I saw the packet.
Okay.
Okay.
But that's just an estimate, right?
Yes.
So they will come back to us at some point with a final price.
Yes.
Everything comes
Yes.
back
Hard
to
numbers,
you.
yeah. I make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Arlene.
So you're all saying that, Arlene Harrison, so you're all saying that there is the numbers in the packet. Would you like to mention what those numbers are to the public?
Sure. For the fire station number 1, hurricane damage, this just is hurricane damage. There were $486,000 worth of hurricane damage, and the fee for design is $44,000. Okay? Public safety, excuse me, public works, to just put that public works back to form, with a lot of damage up top. It says here, detailed costs, repair existing public works building, remove, replace metal panels, installation, overhead doors, walk doors, canopies. We're looking at, just to do that part, is $230,675. To repair open freestanding canopy building, that's $62,000. New multi-building addition, and this is where the Public Works, we were wanting to, while we were rebuilding, to add a break room. They are the only department that does not have a break room. They literally have to sit outside to eat lunch. And then the new shop canopy. So to do all of those things and the commission decide whether or not we will do all these in phases or we will do them all at one time is $557,000, $475. And their costs to do all the programming, permitting, construction administration, and construction estimate is $60,000. Sure.
Is there any other discussion with the commission? Yeah, well, no. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead.
Jody Moore, I just want to speak about the library. I was very active with the library when they were there. We had the history room, and I was active with the book club. I just want to say whatever the library looks like, I spoke with one of the commissioners, and I agree we don't have to have a whole, building full of books necessarily, but a lot of people did go and use the internet and get on the computers and so forth. So it doesn't have to be, a retro building, so to speak, but we definitely need something. It was a gathering place for the community, and we definitely need something that the community can use. So we need to utilize that space wisely. We also had the children's, reading group during the summer, and that was really something that brought the community together. So we need to keep that in mind, whatever design we have.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I don't know if you noticed, I keep calling it library/media center. So that's my hope, is that we will go back to have some kind of computer systems in there for the public to use. Yes, ma'am. So is there any other discussion with the public? Who made the motion second?
Aldridge.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. So if no other discussion, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell?
Yes. So that takes care of item 21. Then moving on to item 22, discussion and approval to move all city commission meetings to 9 a.m. starting January 2021. And I believe this item was suggested by you.
Yes, sir, it is. And the reason I bring up this ordinance so that the citizens understand it, this is, for me, all about safety. It's safety, 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 okay? And let me give you some examples, because I have some here. I have multiple senior citizens that have approached me in passing. My own grandmother is one of them, who's still alive with us, thank the good Lord. They don't like driving after dark. It bothers them to drive after dark. And as we know, our meetings can go long. Even in the summer, we can leave a meeting after dark in July. We're good at that here. And so these elderly people are concerned. They want to be involved. They want to come out, but they are not going to come out if they think they're going to get caught after dark driving their vehicles. Another one is, I've talked to the police chief. We've had a couple of seniors fall leaving the building because we don't have proper lighting, because we're in modular buildings. Once we have proper lighting, I mean, that's one thing. Once we have a safe, secure facility, that's one thing. And again, I'm not opposed to, once we have the lighting and the facilities in place. If this board wants to move the meeting back to 6, if we go this direction, I won't jump up and down and scream about it. Again, it's about safety. It's also safety for our board members. As y'all know, we live in a highly politicized and charged environment right now. And when we leave, I mean, I've had instances myself where I leave and it's dark and I'm parked way down here at the other end, and someone pops out from their car, Commissioner Aldridge, and of course well, yes, sir, well, it was harmless every time, but you never know. You just never know in this world we're living in. And if we had proper lighting out there, then that would be, again, another thing. We have parking lots with LED lights that lit everything up. Another thing that bothers me is I've noticed that when we leave the night meetings, there's children playing over there in that park because it is lighted. And as my grandmother always says, you know, it makes me more nervous than a cat on a hot tin roof with all the cars leaving and children. And I know because I have small children, and many of you have had children and grandchildren, they're liable to just run out, you know, in between the cars over there. So again, this is not a let's stop anyone from coming to meetings. Once we have our facilities, once we have our lights, once we have our parking lots, I'm more than open to moving the meetings back to 6. But my gosh, why take the chance of someone falling and breaking their hip because we just don't have the correct lighting in a modular building in the recovery of a hurricane? So, you know, I did want to put it out there and see if this board would entertain to where when we're here, it's daytime. I know our law enforcement backs me on this because it's difficult when it's dark out to make sure everyone's getting to their cars safely. You know, I actually left a meeting back 4 or 5 months ago, and one of our female employees was walking down a dark road by herself on the side of the road, just because she was walking home. But my point was, it was pitch black dark. Again, it made me feel uncomfortable for her at that point in time. So I just want to put this out there for your consideration. I'm only one vote at the end of the day, but to me, safety is paramount. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, you know, I mean, and just for qualification, because I've heard people make comments about, you know, this commission and our salaries and stuff like that. I'm an employee. I work for a company, and I'm lucky enough to have a company that allows me the time to do this job. That being said, you know, 9 o'clock meeting is not good for me for work. You know, I mean, I'm here today and I'm taking off time to do this meeting. But at the end of the day, I took this job and I will see it out. And I will agree with whatever this commission decides to do. If it wants to move the meetings to 9, then I'll go to my employer and ask him to let me come to the second meeting. But I also will let you know that I have told Ms. Gaynor, when we went through this process from me being, you know, Mayor Pro Tem, that the item would have to be very dear to my heart for me to cause a tie on this commission. And if you'll notice, I have voted with the majority every time this commission has voted. And that is my intent today, is I will vote the way this commission goes. But I just wanted to make sure you're aware of my feelings on the issue. So is there any other discussion?
Go ahead, Judy.
Well, basically, though I love safety, and I respect your opinion on that, the older folks have the ability to come at 9 in the morning to that meeting. I think the meeting at 6 o'clock is crucial. It's crucial for many, many reasons, but mostly for people who work, who cannot get away, who don't have the luxury to watch the meeting. And watching the meeting and participating is two different things. So I think that is a huge issue. There was a reason that we went to the 9 and the 6 to begin with, and I think it's extremely important, and I have gotten much feedback.
I would like to note that
regarding this,
the numbers actually, the attendance for the morning meetings are much more generally than the evening meetings. We get more attendance during those. Just to put that out there.
Mm-hmm. There's plenty of public here to speak to it, so I really don't have to say much, except the majority of the people that, matter of fact, all the people that contacted me definitely want that 6 o'clock meeting, and so that they can attend. And I know some people today did not go to work or are missing work to be here for this meeting to have a voice. So let them at it.
I can kind of concur with Commissioner Tinder, because I listened to a lot of people yesterday, and it wasn't just one person. There was messengers and there was emails, and people, working people tend to want to come after work. I did hear that, you know, we could back it up an hour if possible. You know, if it's any kind of compromise, maybe 5 o'clock would be easier to get out at the end of the night. And our meetings seem to run about 2 hours. And 5 o'clock would still be dusk when people walked in, you know, or thereabouts, you know, the time change. I'm ready to listen to folks. So I know there's folks here to talk about it. So
Can I ask our attorney if someone did fall out there and break something, are we liable?
I mean, you'd have, just like if anybody was at your house, I mean, obviously we would have, you know, insurance would kick in,
Litigation,
it just
yeah.
depends on the situation, but, you know, just generally falling, there's not, you know, did you have a broken sidewalk or just lighting, it would depend on the circumstance.
Well, my reason for asking that is I know that there are laws and codes in place for lighting in public places. However, there's exceptions for when there's a Cat 5 storm that blows everything away, right? So not necessarily everything's going to be up to code here. And that's a concern for me. Again, this is a safety thing. I'll be here whenever we have the meetings. I'm in this position. So, but I just don't, the thought of someone getting hurt just bothers me. It just does. And I'll leave it at that.
I will say that, and you know, most of y'all that have been here before, I've always been a proponent of the early meetings. And again, that's why I made a point to say that I'm going to vote the way this commission goes, because I want you to understand. The reason I've always been a proponent of the early meetings is for the employees. You know, they're here all day long, and then they have to stay at a 6 o'clock meeting, and it just makes a long day for them. But again, you know, that was an opinion I had, and you know what to say about opinions. So, and I'm going to need some direction here. Do we go to public commentary, or do we need a motion a second before we go to public commentary? Or is that up to my decision?
Yeah,
Then I'm
that's how you
gonna,
typically do it.
then I'm going, well, but I can. Okay, then I'm going to defer. Is there any public commentary on this issue? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, again, Jody Moore. Okay. I've heard a lot about safety, all right, and I've talked to several of the commissioners about this issue. First of all, I'll just tell you, as far as the elderly issue, of course, I'm concerned about their safety too. I'm a nurse, and I love the elderly. I'm very concerned about them as well. But I can tell you that I do home health, and I can tell you there's a lot of elderly people. They don't want to roll out of bed and be at a 9 o'clock meeting. There's many of them that don't want to do that. They don't want to get moving. So you're actually disenfranchising a lot of them too, because they won't come to these meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning. Some of them will, some of them won't. So, and a lot of them actually don't get on the computer. So they're not going to come to meetings in person, and they're not going to be on the computer. So they're not going to know what's going on. You talked about somebody walking lonely down the dark road. Okay, I've actually looked this up before. Lynn Haven is actually the 2nd or 3rd safest city in the whole state of Florida. So I personally am not worried about getting mugged, and I will be happy to walk down the street, the dark street, anytime. If lighting is an issue, let's get some lights out here. If I'm at a meeting and it's 5:30, 6 o'clock, I'll lend my arm to someone, and I'll be happy to walk someone down. I don't think there's that many cases of something like that, okay? Also, regarding the elderly, I looked this up. The median age of people in Lynn Haven is 35, okay? So when you have just 9 o'clock meetings, you're eliminating a whole group of people that can't come to a meeting in person, okay? Yeah, they can look online, but we all know that there are people, we have been packed before at 6 o'clock meetings that have come and have wanted to speak in person. Like I remember specifically that Landon's Landing issue. There were a whole group of people that came and spoke about that were very passionate about it. I don't think they got what they wanted, but still they came and spoke. So you're not going to have people that are able to come and speak in person. And then we talked about the code enforcement issue and the mobile homes. I can tell you there's people that have children that work, and you only get a certain number of days that you can get on vacation. You could do that. So for them to have to take off work, I mean, maybe you have the flexibility, but other people don't. When they have to take off work and they have to come, that's just not, that doesn't fly when you have children, and you might have to take off, work and for your children and have to be home with them. To take off a day to come to a commission meeting or take up a morning, that's a lot. So you need to consider all of the citizens, and I'm speaking about this because I'm tired of this coming up before the commission every 6 months or so, okay? I think all the citizens need to be considered. And like I said, when you look at the median age of the person who lives in Lynn Haven as 35 years old, when you have 9 o'clock meetings, you're leaving a lot of people out of that. And to say that people don't come to 6 o'clock meetings, I think COVID has kind of like put a kibosh on a lot of people coming to meetings. But I have been here, and I know I'm mostly, this is like the first time I think I've ever been to a 9 o'clock meeting, and it'll be the last if we keep the 6 o'clock meetings, because that's when I come. This has been back and forth and back and forth. We have voted to have later meetings. And I think we need to keep that. I'm very passionate about that. But I'll come to 9 o'clock meetings if that's the way it is, because I'm going to keep an eye on everything that's happening. But I think it's wrong if you change the times.
if
This
you
has
could
been back and forth.
wrap
Yes,
it up.
okay.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
wrapped up. I've said my piece. This
ma'am.
makes me very angry because this has gone on for like 3 or 4 years. We need to keep the later time. I'd be okay with 5 o'clock, 5:30. And another thing that was said to me is like, everybody
Ma'am,
else has
ma'am.
morning meet. Okay, this is my last point. They said everybody else in Bay County has 9 o'clock meetings, okay? And no, they don't. Springfield has a 5:30 meeting. And let's not do what everybody else is doing. Let's do what Lynn Haven does, okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Can I speak to that for a second, Mayor?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not going to drag
Yes,
this
sir.
out, but
Yes, sir.
I just want to make the point that, again, my whole thing is, and I gave specific examples of safety issues. And on the other argument, it is that there may or may not be people that want to come after work. I gave specific examples. I think the other one would be called conjecture for our attorneys. But again, I will go whichever way this board wants to go. Safety is all I care about. If we don't go that way, I'm not saying you don't care about safety. I'm just saying that's why I'm bringing this up. It's the only reason. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Miss Arlene. I'm sorry, Mr. Walker, I'll get you next, but you know me, I'm always going to pick a lady first.
All right. You know who I don't see here in this meeting is senior citizens, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning meeting. And you know who else I don't see here is working people. So you're disenfranchising a whole lot of people who cannot attend at a 9 o'clock meeting. And I totally disagree with this big, serious safety issue. This is safe. I walk to that park all the time, almost every evening. And there are children playing out there. Yes, they're not running out in the street. They have parents with them. And you know, it's not I'm there all the time, and I see the safety in this city. And I'm very proud of our police department. I feel safe here, and I disagree, and I totally want people to be able to attend these meetings, and that we've fought over this darn 6 o'clock meeting forever because it just seems, it gives the appearance, if you want to go to straight to 9 o'clock meetings, that you don't want to hear from everybody in the community. And I totally agree with everything that Jody just said.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Walker?
Ladies are a hard act to follow here on this one. I don't want to get in a disagreement or anything, but this is a walkable golf cart community, protected by an adequate police department for safety. If you, I'm looking at you, if you personally think there is a safety problem out there with lights and everything, and we're going to get sued, oh, you will be sued. Just stepping out of your door. If you feel that we have a problem there, I think you should correct that.
We are. Construction starts in March.
All right?
This will be a
So-
construction zone, this whole
But as it
place.
stands right now, these ladies are right. You know, this is a safety community. We are oriented to that. We're looking at that. There is no reason. We've kicked this time back and forth down the road so many times. The ladies are right. You're going to deny a viable community from attending your meetings.
I disagree, sir. I
You
think it's
do-
safety.
you do that. So
Safety, safety,
don't-
safety.
don't-
One child's too much.
There is a certain.
Let him finish, then you can talk.
Okay.
There's a certain point too. You have meetings which are judicial meetings have to be at 5:01.
Yes, that's
You need-
correct.
You need to address me, okay?
I'm looking right at you. I'm
Okay.
addressing
Well, you keep pointing to him and talking to him. That's what's going to cause this back and forth, so
Okay.
address to
All
me,
right.
please.
They have 5:01s. So you get certain meetings that have to be at 5. Why? Why are they at 5:01? They're there to get the people at work, that they leave their work at 5 o'clock. They got 1 minute to get here. That's what it's about. If you keep with that line, keep your meetings split, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. That'll cover all bases. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, I was just going, Mr. Walker, I know you're here for every meeting. I know you are, and I appreciate you being here and being on our boards.
I'm the only senior center here. Senior.
Yeah, yep. But I guess my question would be, since you are here every meeting, you could also attest that it's pretty much the same people at 6 and at 9, right?
Yes.
And I'll leave it at that.
People come for special events.
No.
When something's
Must
happening.
approach,
Okay, we're-
must
we're-
approach
we're-
the podium, please.
Is there anybody else, ma'am?
Jerry Parker, Rhett Place. I disagree with it going to Total 9. I understand about safety, and I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
My question is, has anybody fell out of here at a 6 p.m. meeting?
Yes.
2.
Okay, all right. So can we not put out more lighting out here until we get into another building? Can we not do that?
I just added some additional lighting outside, but
perfect.
it does not
Perfect.
Run the street.
cover the sidewalks, and that's
I
actually
understand,
where
I
people
understand.
feel.
I have never been to a meeting at night where Chief Ramey has not walked me out. Not once. Not once. And I think everybody here can contest to that. He walks every single person out. So as far as safety goes, thank you. I have never felt unsafe in Lynn Haven. I've lived here for 18 years. Never. Not once. I lived down 17th Street when there was no lights. So I think the convenience factor needs to go to the citizen instead of the commission.
And again, I
Because-
did speak with law enforcement about this, so
Well,
we know. And
I
I'm not
mean,
dragging him in it, but I'm just saying.
It is a convenience factor as well, because the people, you're eliminating a big chunk of our citizenry, and you're not giving them the opportunity, and that's the key here. Whether they come or not, they need the opportunity to be heard. Safety or no safety. And the seniors, just like I couldn't come at 9, the seniors don't have to come at 6. They don't have to, they can listen online. So if they fear something, then they don't have to attend the 6 o'clock meeting. It's simple as that. The same way the people that can't attend the 9. It's equal.
So we disenfranchise people either way.
Either way, yeah, you do.
Okay.
So you need to give it an equal balance, is what my thought is. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other public commentary? Okay. So, since this is a discussion and possible approval item,
I'll
what
make the
is
motion
will- what
to
is-
approve, and we'll just see what happens.
Okay, we got a motion. And it dies for lack of a second. Moving forward. Item 23, discussion approval for the city to host an interfaith leadership breakfast 3 times a year. Commissioner Aldridge, I believe this is yours too.
Yes, sir. This is me as well. So what I was wanting to do, with my father being a pastor here locally, I've grown up seeing him work with people in community. And no one knows what's going on more on the ground level with the citizens than faith leaders of all faiths, okay? They see their parishioners weekly generally, and they see the ones that are having issues, as well as the ones that are doing okay in life, but they still understand the whole socioeconomic rung from top to bottom, because you have that in a church or in a synagogue or in a mosque or anything else. So what I wanted to do in order to make sure that there's communication between the faithful and the local government is that we get together a couple of times a year and maybe have a holiday thing one time in which we serve some breakfast, some fruit, some different things that people would like to have, some coffee, and then we just discuss with the leadership teams of these churches, synagogues, and mosques, whatever it happens to be in Lynn Haven. We just have a frank discussion with them. What are you seeing with your people? Where are their needs? Where can we help as a government with the people on the ground? Can we assist you in any way with helping people or passing out food at Christmas or whatever it may be? But unless we engage that community, we're not going to know what they're doing. They're going to be doing their own thing. And again, we're all neighbors here. I mean, I care about each and every one of you. Even when we disagree about stuff, I still like you. We still work together. And I still want to work together on these type things. I think I don't see a downside to finding out what people are going through. So the motion really is just to direct staff to start putting together some sort of plan, if this is approved, some sort of plan where we can have a breakfast or a coffee meet and greet type thing, almost like with the city manager, but we'll have the board there, and we'll have the leadership teams from any faith organization within Lynn Haven.
since this is a discussion item, if the board is there, it's gonna have to be an advertised meeting for us to be able to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah, just for clarification. And then the only other thing I would say is that for us to do this, we need to be inclusive of any religious organization that wants to be involved.
Absolutely. I'd say it's any 501c3 maybe would be the, that is religious
broader.
with a religious orientation. It doesn't have to be a religious orientation. It could be 501c3. I'm not opposed to that. Just anybody that's out trying to really, they're on the ground level, because it'd be like having the Boys and Girls Club leadership come in. Again, that's not a ministry, but yet it still does the same. It's dealing with people on the ground level. That's my whole purpose in this, is making sure we're finding out where we can help. So
I like that idea. I really do. My only concern again is if we include the commission in it, then we're gonna need to make sure we advertise the meetings, and it has to be, and if it's advertised, it has to be open to the public. Yeah, is that correct?
Mayor, if I may, is it possible to appeal to the Senior Activity Center to possibly make that an activity of some sort or a meeting, and then arbitrarily we can attend if we wanted to?
And again, this is to look at it. I'm not planning on
seniors
coming.
get going. So
Yeah, this ordinance again is not right now to hammer out an entire plan of what we're going to do. It's just more to get the ball rolling so we can get these ideas going. Maybe we can get staff involved and even narrowing down how many 501c3s we have in Lynn Haven. Just some basic information to get us started. Putting together the meal and having the discussion's not the hard part. I mean, you get fruit, pancakes, whatever, and then you have some coffee and everyone gets together and talks. But it's how we're going to approach this that I think we need to work on a little bit.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
This is probably not going to be a popular statement, but I have to make it. The whole thing about religion and state is a real issue, and I think it's an issue for particular reasons. It has to be all-inclusive, number one. The fact that we just raised our residents' taxes and now we want to buy a handful of people and pay for breakfast. And there's a huge difference between coffee and donuts and pancakes. It sounds like the realm could go anywhere. It's just something I think we need to really keep in mind. I just can't believe that we have more than 50. And I think that's probably a high number in the city of Lynn Haven. But to be all-inclusive would be a huge thing. The expense, I think, could get out of hand because, like the Mayor Pro Tem pointed out, it now becomes a public meeting. So everybody could come for breakfast. And for these folks, I would think even to entertain it, we should send them on a letter. Send a letter to these churches and ask them, are they interested?
And it's not just churches. I agree. We'll change that verbiage to 501c3s. So it can be Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club, whatever, Grasshopper Catching Club. It don't matter. As long as they're out helping, the community in some way, then I would like to at least talk to these people, find out what's going on.
Well, I think we should send them a letter and see if they're interested before we go to all this expense of having the staff, do all this work.
I like the idea of changing it to organizational groups. But I'd like to also consider that instead of saying the whole commission, that we consider setting this up with the city manager, sits down and meets with them. And maybe one commissioner goes to, that way it doesn't become a public meeting.
No, I like that. I'm not trying to cause
It cuts down on the
rubs.
cost, it cuts down the advertising,
Right.
and it still gets the city, the input from the organizations that are on the ground with the people.
Yeah, and the whole thing behind this is just trying to help people any way we can. You know what I mean? And again, there's underprivileged children. There's people out there that we're building facilities for them to come, the Boys and Girls Club. And again, how will we know if they're handing out free meals and we can donate a meal? And we're not talking to them. You know what I mean? So I at least want channels of communication open with these organizations. So I'll amend my motion to say that we will look at contacting 501c3 organizations within the city of Lynn Haven to discuss possible meetings twice a year pertaining to the citizens' needs.
Thank you. And I apologize. I didn't realize you had made a motion because we should have stopped discussion without a second. So I apologize for that. But we have a motion on the floor now.
I'll second the motion. It involves a meeting, right? Not a meeting. Okay.
Let's do a meeting. We can evolve
And,
this.
and we're seeing what, we're gonna explore it.
Right.
Okay.
So I got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission?
Just so we're clear and making sure we know everything, this is a meeting and not a breakfast. But one of the things that we can do as the city is that people always are approaching us about sponsorships. You can get sponsorships for people to sponsor, coffee and donuts or something of that nature if you have it, or early breakfast. So I would love to be able to reach out to maybe some businesses here to do a sponsorship, and then it would not cost the city anything.
I'd volunteer. You want to put me on the list?
I don't think we need to amend a motion as long as there's no expense coming from the city. Yeah. All right. So we've got a motion and a second. Is there no discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Arlene.
What happened to the separation of church and state? We already blur the lines here in
Yes,
Lynn
ma'am.
Haven.
If I can, we have corrected that, and it's no longer an interface. It's any 501(c)(3), any
I heard
any
that.
organization.
I heard that.
Yes, sir.
But I can see. Okay, never mind.
I mean, I envision the Arc of the Bay, the Boys and Girls Club. I envision those organizations coming in
Yep.
here and helping us too. So I mean, it's not. I don't think it was ever intended to be a religious interfaith type thing. I think that was just the wording that was chosen.
It was more of a not-for-profit.
Yes, ma'am. But yes, ma'am. But the motion that was made corrected that. So, yes, ma'am. Is there any other discussion with the public? Yes, sir.
After this, I'd like to double back, just back to the previous agenda item after we finish this. If you don't, just,
Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. So no more discussion. City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Parno,
yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Okay, so that takes care of agenda item number 23. Commissioner Perno has asked for us to step back to item 22 for a second, and I understand that's out of context or procedure, but so if anybody's got any complaint with that, please.
I think I know what he's going to say.
I'd just like to make the motion that we move the night meeting to 5 o'clock for just for daylight savings purposes. So we're closer to dusk than dark.
I second that. I agree with that. About daylight.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to move the second meeting of the month to 5 o'clock instead of 6. Is there any discussion with the public? No? Any discussion with the commission?
You
Yes,
looked at
ma'am.
me and said public. And
What did I say?
you looked at me and said public, and you asked the commission to tell you.
I tell you, it's been one of them days already.
Jerry
Sorry about that,
Parker,
ma'am.
Red Place, only during the time change, correct?
The motion did say during this.
Okay,
this.
just wanted to clarify.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. Since it got tabled, the first motion basically got tabled because there was no second.
No, it wouldn't get
No,
tabled.
it just died on the
lack of
floor.
motion.
There was no motion.
Yeah, there was no motion to table.
Okay, so
Died.
we will continue at the times with the caveat that during daylight, we're going to go to 5.
Yep, during daylight savings time.
But to clarify now, any commissioner can put anything on the agenda item.
Yes.
So that's nothing to say that you're not going to come to the next meeting and say you wanted it 8:30. I mean, that's what we're here for, So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
I just think the hour will help. It'll help the staff. It'll help with the perception of dark and whatnot for now. So.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion with the commission? Any more discussion with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes, motion carries. All right, then moving to 24, adjournment. Thank you all for being here today.